Hey, how about you, everybody? Welcome into this week's edition of the Auburn Live Recruiting Show. I'm your host, Jeffrey Lee, Senior Recruiting Editor for Auburn Live on 3. If you're not a member of that site, you're absolutely missing out. Got 50% off right now. $5 a month. Can't beat it.
Nope.
Please check it out. Give us a try. Also, please like and subscribe to our YouTube channel, Auburn Live on 3 YouTube channel. It's pretty good. We got some stuff to talk about this week, and to help me do it all, my main man, Mr. Jhead and Mr. Cole Pinkston. Mr. Jhead, how about you?
I'm doing good, brother. It's another Friday morning. Getting to talk a little bit of recruiting, a little bit of football with you guys, and we'll see if we can do another Survive and Advance this coming Saturday. But interesting guys' thoughts.
Cole, how about you, buddy?
I'm doing great, man. I appreciate it. I'm hoping that I didn't pick up Jhead's old internet.
Yeah.
So, I see Cole's rocking his Auburn Live this morning. All right. Courtesy of Jessica Andrews with EXP Realty. Looking for a home in or around Auburn, Opelika area, Lee County, residential, investment property. She can do it all, folks. 5-star realtor, consensus 5-star realtor. Jessica Andrews, EXP Realty, 334-704-4442. Tell her we sent you. Please. Might help me out.
There you go.
All right, fellas. Another week, another home game.
Yes.
The fifth in a row.
Yes.
Fifth in a row. Auburn is currently 3-1, although we have seen the pen doesn't match the action.
Well said.
The pen doesn't match the action, but can't take it away from. I'll tell you what, man. LSU game Saturday night, 6 o'clock under the lights at Jordan Hare Stadium. Going to be a raucous crowd. Auburn fans always bring it, regardless of what's going on.
Yep.
And to be there, and to see that to be there is going to be a huge group, an impressive group of recruits. Say what you want to about these coaches. Say what you want to about the product you're seeing on the field so far this season, but you can't take away. And Jhead's a big advocate. He said it many times, you can't take away what this recruiting staff is bringing on these home games, on these big home games. The Darren Ushers, the Steven Ruziks, these guys are getting it done, getting these kids on campus. I counted more than 24-star recruits expected to visit. I think there's at least 3 5-star guys expected to visit, including the 5-star safety committed to Alabama, Tony Mitchell, coming in for an official visit. Then you've got Quay Russaw and James Smith coming back for, I think, the 3rd time this year.
Yep. I believe so. That's correct.
You've got 4-star Darren Usher, the defensive lineman committed to LSU, coming up for his 3rd game this year. Getting these kids on campus has not been a problem. Those guys in the recruiting department have been doing a phenomenal job, especially with all the rumors circling and stuff, and you're still able to get these kids on campus. Cole, your thoughts on this visit list?
I think as we say a bunch, it's impressive what they're doing, getting guys on campus. It has been since the very beginning, so nothing different about this week. It's a big week. You knew it was going to be a big game, regardless of what your record was. Home game under the lights, LSU. You never know what happens there. So it should be an interesting game, whether or not Auburn wins. And we've already talked about that too. But it doesn't really matter. You get the guys on campus; they want to see the atmosphere, and it'll stick with them. That kind of atmosphere just sticks with you, and you remember it when you're doing your process, and you want to get back to it, and that's the key here.
3 official visitors. We mentioned 5-star Tony Mitchell, another interesting guy. Of course, Braden Joyner's coming over from Auburn High School. He's been committed to Auburn since, I think, 2012. He's coming in for his official visit. But Alex Sanford, the 3-star linebacker who's committed to Arkansas. He's from Oxford, Mississippi. He's committed to Arkansas. He's been wanting to come in. Cole, talk to us about Alex.
Alex, yeah, I went to see him about 2 or 3 weeks ago at Oxford High School and got to meet him and his coach, Coach Cutcliffe over there, Chris, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, man, I got the vibe that Alex Sanford is committed. No doubt he's committed to Arkansas. He really has a good relationship with those guys. Loves Sam Pittman. He keeps him, on the line all the time. And they're gonna be, somewhat difficult for Auburn to beat out. But what he's being told from Auburn is really interesting to him. Again, he was told, look, the Owen Papo guy that we have, hey, that's what we want you doing. That's the position. Right in the middle, sort of commanding everything. We think you're that kind of guy. And lately, he's kind of moved up for that position. So I think that if Auburn really pushes for him, which it seems like they are, they're going to have a great shot at flipping him, and maybe soon.
Yeah, I agree. I think they're definitely going to be pushing. We know that Auburn kind of backed off on Marcelius Pulliam. We've been watching these two guys closely for that middle backer position, and it looks like Alex Sanford is the top dog at that spot, and Auburn will definitely be pushing for him this weekend, trying to flip his commitment. Jhead, the 2023 class, some of the guys confirmed or expected to visit this weekend. 4-star edge Keldrick Faulk's coming back.
Yes.
4-star edge Gabriel Harris is coming back. We talked about Darren Reed.
Yes.
And then you've got Reuben Bain, the 4-star edge from Miami, coming up. Arion Carter, who was supposed to come in this weekend. Unfortunately, he had a family member pass, so he will not be able to make it. He will try to reschedule that and come back at a later time. Stanquan Clark, the 4-star linebacker. A lot of kids coming up from Miami. A large contingent of guys expected to travel up from Miami, of course, weather permitting, with Hurricane Ian coming through Florida basically and just wiping out a lot of stuff. Jhead, your thoughts on this 2023 unofficial visitor list?
Well, let's go back to what you said about the effort that's being applied by this off-the-field recruiting staff, headlined by obviously Drew Fabianich, Darren Usher, Steven Ruzick. Those are main players, but there are a lot of people behind the scenes that are applying a lot of effort to make sure that Auburn doesn't lose traction with kids that they really want in this class. I mean, you have to applaud the efforts that are being put in behind the scenes to continuously get these kids on campus, whether or not they're getting commitments or not. You know what I mean? And they have picked up in that area, obviously adding 3 big commitments within the last 2 weeks. But how do you know what I mean, when you have so much negative out there, how do you get beyond that? Well, it's getting kids on campus and selling them on your coaching staff and selling them on the environment, to which Auburn is second to none. I mean, I think you just saw Lane Kiffin go on a rant about the environment not being in the stadium at Ole Miss, and they're a 4-0 team. Auburn has packed out the stadium each and every week, and there's never an issue at Jordan-Hare with regard to, what's going to happen there in big game atmosphere. And this LSU game is going to be second to none as far as that goes. It's always Auburn, LSU at night. It's going to be packed out, man. But really happy to see that we're addressing needs with kids that we're getting on campus this week. I mean, I think the edge position and offensive line are probably the 2 biggest glaring needs when you're looking at it from a roster management standpoint of what you're going to turn over this offseason. Those are the 2 biggest spots. And so you're getting a kid in Clay Whedon in, that's a wing guy that's really big for us because he could field a multitude of positions. You're getting 4 different edge players if everybody shows, and Gabriel Harris, Quay Rousseau, Reuben Bain, Keldrick Faulk, all capable of playing edge and capable of playing earlier rather than later.
Arguably the absolute top 4 guys at the edge position, the top targets at the edge position, all expected to be here Saturday.
Correct. And then 3 big names. Obviously, it would have been nice to have Carter in this weekend. I'm very high on him personally. Watched his highlight film and immediately texted Cole and said, "Did you see this?"
Yeah.
But getting Lewis Carter on campus, if they're able to get him there, Jade Nosberry, Stanquan Clark, and then Alex Sanford. So, 4 guys on campus. You would have had 5 with Carter.
Jaden will not be able to make it.
Jaden will not be able to make it. So it is 3. Okay. So getting those 3 on campus would be really big for this class because you're looking at an Alex Sanford who, to me, comps a lot to a Josh Bynes, probably a little bit bigger, but very similar.
Damn, he's that big?
Oh, he's bigger than Bynes because Bynes was only – the frame wasn't as big. I think Josh was only like 6'1" or 6 foot. I don't think he was – you know what I mean? It doesn't have the length that Alex Sanford does.
Alex
you saw him in
big.
person.
He's
Alex,
big.
Is it?
At 6, almost 6'4".
Damn.
Chipping
I'd
2.
say he's probably in between 6'2" and 6'3" right there, and probably about 230 pounds.
Right.
Yeah. So
and that's just a high school kid. What do you think he's going to be when he gets in a college strength and conditioning program? And you may even have to fight to keep weight off that kid because it's just going to be so easy to put on that frame.
Which I will say, Oxford, they got it going on in the weight room. They got it going on. That school is well run. That football program is well run. So he's gotten a little taste of what it's going to be like in college, and that's always a good thing too.
I agree. There's some transitive property there that probably is going to help him when he starts to make that ascension. But linebacker, edge, offensive line, you are addressing needs in this class that you have to have, and you're getting them on campus. And look, I don't know what's going to happen this weekend. Okay. I think we all have a pretty good idea that, what might happen, but you don't know. And if Auburn comes out with a victory and you have these kind of kids in attendance, and it's not the win per se, but it's what's going to happen with the fans. It's what's going to happen in that stadium. It's what's going to happen at Toomer's Corner after all that's done. That's going to sell these kids on what Auburn can be and what you can experience when you're there on campus. So getting them there is half the battle. Then it's about what you do once they get there. I'm very impressed with the kids they got coming in this weekend.
And, talking about the needs, Auburn has a commitment from Jamarian Harkless, still looking for some defensive linemen. You've got Darren Reed coming in. You've got Tadarius Collins coming up from Louisiana. And then you look at the defensive back. You got Edwin Joseph, the new cornerback offer from down in Hollywood, Florida. A lot of these Florida – I'll just read off some of these South – and the 2024 class is loaded too, the group – talking about 2023 now. You got the commitments coming in. You've got Stanquan Clark, the four-star linebacker coming up from Miami. You've got Edwin Joseph coming up from Hollywood. You've got where's my Miami list? Oh, my goodness. Hollywood, Zaquan Patterson, four-star DB in the 2024 class. Luane McCoy, who Auburn just offered, wide receiver from Avant Garde. I know I'm saying that wrong. Keith is ourselves. And even some 2024 kids in 2025 that Auburn has, 2025 and 2026. I think Auburn just offered Malachi Toney, a 2026 kid who would be like 8th or 9th grade. He's coming up from American Heritage in Fort Lauderdale. Amari Wallace, the cornerback in 2025 class. Chris Wall, both 2025 guys from South Florida. So a lot of guys coming in from South Florida, and that's probably just the guys we know about. But I think all eyes, as far as I'm concerned, Reuben Bain, he's been wanting to come to a game since he left back in the summer. And Stanquan Clark, you mentioned him, Jhead, Louisville commitment. You would think that's the kid that Auburn could turn. I don't know where he stands on the board as far as, is he an outside guy, inside guy? Is he a guy you take on the outside if you can get Sanford? I
think it's hard to say where he is. He's a very talented athlete, but he's definitely a weak side linebacker in my opinion. I don't think he's a Mike, not with what I'm looking at right now. But you got
listed at 6'1", 210. Yeah.
And just his game in and of itself. I've watched a lot of his highlights. And the way he plays would, in the current scheme that we employ, he would be much better on the weak side than he would be at the middle linebacker position.
Yeah, and they've kept the line of communication open with him for a reason. Whether or not, where he is on the board, they want to keep him,
keep him warm for sure. Get him on campus. Let him see the atmosphere. You know what I mean? Is he a guy that, if things don't break right? Because obviously – with the exception of Carter, who's committed to Memphis, and I think we all anticipate he's going to flip somewhere, right?
Yeah.
I don't think anybody thinks that he's sticking with Memphis.
Right.
But there's a really good likelihood that Jaden Osbury could very well stay with, Notre Dame. There's a very good likelihood that Lewis Carter will stay with Oklahoma. Yeah. In fact, I would almost say it's probably more likely than not that those two don't flip. So you're having to look for candidates to fill that position, because there's no doubt we want two high school linebackers in this class. One at the right feels like they've zeroed in on Alex Sanford, and one at the weak side.
2024 class, you got Sterling Dixon. Mike Matthews, four-star athlete from Lilburn, Parkview, Georgia, Brad Lester's old stomping grounds.
Yes, sir.
He's the number 8 overall recruit in the 2024 class. He's expected to be there. Sterling Dixon, the four-star edge from Obo Christian, who I think's is he going to have a decision in November, or was that Kavion Henderson? I think
Kavion Henderson.
Miles Graham, stud linebacker that's committed to Florida. Yeah. Kamarion Franklin, Jamarian Burnett, Zaquan Patterson. We mentioned him. Also, Jeremiah Beeman. If I'm not mistaken, Jeremiah. Oh, he's the big defensive lineman from Parker. 2024 class. Big stud defensive lineman is coming back. I think he's already been to one game. And also, I got to add this guy today, but Jelani Thurman, is expected to come back with Terrence Love. Not sure on Joshua Horton or Aaron Nolan, but I think Tank Jelani Thurman is also expected to be there. Wouldn't be surprised to see those other guys from Langston Hughes, Bo Hughley, Aaron Nolan, Joshua Horton. Wouldn't be surprised if one or two of them's there. You almost expect the rest of them to be with them.
Yeah.
So something to keep an eye on there. A huge group of studs recruits. And again, say what you want to about the product, but on the field, but you can't really gripe about the product in the stands, not these big home games. Auburn has done what it needs to do to get these kids on campus multiple times. I mean, every home game, including Mercer and San Jose State, has had multiple five-star kids in attendance. And not just from the 2023 class, but the 2024 class have always been well represented. So it's been impressive what these guys off the field have been able to do and doing it again. We know Auburn's going to go out tonight. I thought Keldrick Faulk coming back is interesting. He's committed to Florida State.
Yep.
Auburn obviously continues to push hard for him. Jimmy Brumbaugh is going out tonight to see his game. We talked about Jhead Osbury not being able to come to Auburn this weekend. He's got his homecoming. So what does Auburn do? Well, they're sending Christian Robinson to him. So Christian Robinson's going down to Baton Rouge tonight. Going to see Jhead Osbury. Jimmy Brumbaugh is going down to Highland Home to see Keldrick Faulk.
Mm-hmm.
And listen, here's something I learned. I said on Tuesday night, about sending all the coaches out and doing this and doing that. And I ended it with, but I'm a recruiting reporter, and here's the reason why. Auburn has meetings on Friday nights.
Right.
They have team meetings on Friday night. They're led by the coordinators. They're led by the special teams coordinator, which is Rock Bellantoni. That's why you haven't seen Jeff Schmedding out. That's why you haven't seen Eric Keesall go out. That's why you haven't seen Rock Bellantoni go out. These guys are running meetings. So what do? You take your assistants, your best recruiters, basically, guys who have David Hobbs just said he's going to Ohio State with his sister. Mom didn't want me downtown south in the storm. So David Hobbs is off, which we didn't mention him. I think I had him on my list earlier, but he is going to Ohio State.
Yep.
But yeah, so you take, and especially on a game like this weekend, I can understand. Will Friend wants to be back. He wants to be working with his offensive line, and nobody can really blame him for that.
No, not given the current state of things.
So it makes a lot more sense when I because I'm going, this just doesn't sound right. Why are some of these guys going out? Why is Christian Robinson going to see Clay Wheaton? Mm-hmm. Well, when you look at the offensive line, you know that Will Friend wants to be spending as much time as possible with that offensive line. You get the coordinators leading the meetings on Friday night, and of course, Rob Bellantoni being the special teams coordinator. That's why he hasn't been out. So it all makes a lot more sense when I know.
And I'm gonna join Jimmy Brumbaugh over at Highland Home tonight.
Good deal.
I'm curious to hear what you have to say about him, Cole.
I'd like to watch him. I haven't watched him in person yet. I mean, I know him pretty well at this point. Keldrick, he's a good kid. Him and his brother, JJ, all the folks at Highland Home, got a good relationship with them there. So I want to go watch them, and they're pretty competitive. They always got a good team. And I'm going to try to talk to Keldrick afterwards, see what he's got to say. He keeps coming back to Auburn, so that's interesting. And he told me when I went to see him a couple weeks ago that, I'm not sure what I'm going to do yet. It's really up to my brother. He's got his recruitment going now. I'm sort of on the back end of mine. So where he wants to go is where I'll go. And he also said to me kind of off record, my mom kind of likes to go to some of these games too, so I'll follow her too. Well, that's when I saw him at Auburn. I said, "Hey man, I didn't know you were coming today." He goes, "Well, my mom wanted to come over here today." So again,
your mama love her some Auburn now.
Well, yeah, mama's gonna like, the close school, right? That's usually how that goes in general. So that's probably the place his mom likes him at, I would say. I'm sure Florida State, she loves it too. They've been on him from the beginning. I mean, it's a tough deal for a guy like Keldrick who's, been recruited by Florida State since he was in like 9th grade. So he felt some kind of loyalty to them. But he feels like, man, Auburn is really close, and I could be real close to home that way. So that's kind of the back and forth he's got there.
And credit to Mike Norvell for steadying the ship there at Florida State, off to a 4-0 start.
Yep.
As far as that's concerned. So that makes things even more problematic from Auburn's standpoint. But
Yep.
Well, I'm really interested to see what you say about JJ, even more so than Eldred, who's obviously a big Auburn target already.
Right.
Eldred's kind of a known commodity now, right? Like we know what he's capable of, what he's flashed to this point. But JJ is somebody that I heard has turned heads early this season. I've got obviously some ties to that Wiregrass area, that part of the country, and he's really kind of put on a show early. So I'm really interested to see what your eye tells you with regard to JJ and Kildred.
JJ being the 2025?
25,
Correct.
yes.
What position? Linebacker?
Well, I think he's listed as a linebacker, but
All over the field.
anywhere.
Yeah.
Anywhere. He's a 3-level player. I mean, he said if I can – he told me when I talked to him, I was like, well, I said, what position do you like? He said, well, I mean, if I can stay at this weight, I think I can play safety. I was like, I don't know. That's gonna be tough, man.
Bro,
You
there's
almost
no way he's staying that way, man. I mean, he's already what, 210?
Yeah, I said that to him. I was like, man, you got some room to grow there, brother. I don't know if safety's where you're at, but hey, if you can play like a safety at linebacker, you better believe you're gonna be the real deal for people.
There is no Keldrick. Going back to Keldrick, to me, he is one of the more imposing kids standing on the side. I mean, you look at that guy and you go, where does that 25? What NFL team does that 25-year-old play for?
Yeah,
I mean, he is impressive.
The all-bus team.
Yes.
Yeah.
Put him in the front.
He stands out in the crowd, that's for sure.
Let's take a look at this game real quick.
Okay.
Auburn, LSU, 6:00 Saturday night, Jordan-Hare Stadium. LSU, last we checked, Zach, I think it was 8.5. LSU's an 8.5-point favorite. Yesterday on the modcast, I picked a closer game. I think I had it at 23-20. I think Auburn scored a late touchdown or something like that to make it look closer than it really was.
Yep.
I said because I think Auburn scoring more than one touchdown against LSU is going to be difficult, especially with the offense the way it is right now with a 4th-string center, a 3rd-string quarterback, or 2nd-string quarterback.
Yeah.
And I still feel like the crowd, the stadium is worth a touchdown to Auburn somehow. So I've got Auburn with 2 touchdowns, a couple of field goals. Is that being too optimistic, Jhead?
For me, it is.
I think so too. The more I thought about it,
because I do think that Jordan Hare's worth a touchdown. I agree with that. I think they'll get one other. I think my score prediction as of today is 24-14. LSU is better offensively than Missouri. And we saw last week that Missouri had the ability to move the ball against Auburn in the first half. In the second half, it was pretty much stalemate until you got to the overtime. So obviously some adjustments there were made defensively on our end. But offensively, it's a bad matchup for us. Given the strength of LSU, which is their defensive line, going against our offensive line, a 2nd-string quarterback that still is a little bit uncomfortable within the system. And unless we make some changes schematically to do some things to accentuate what Robbie does well, which is obviously utilize his athleticism, so more RPO. If that's even in the scheme, that's what I don't know. How much RPO is there? How much variety do they have? How much more of an option game? And Jay Lee, you hit this perfectly. And I don't know what Robbie's capability is running the read zone. And I know the defenses have adjusted and started to crash the mesh point to make him make earlier decisions as far as that's concerned. But if you can pop a couple of those, it's just going to free tank up so much more because you're adding that extra hat in the run game and that person that you have to account for. So can we be successful on the ground? I just don't know. And like I said, I really don't like the matchup of LSU's defensive line versus Auburn's offensive line in this game because it makes it feel like to me, it's just a mismatch, and they'll be able to control the line of scrimmage there.
Jay, real quick, I'm gonna go to Keith, but sticking with on the ground game, Prize Picks, our sponsor for the podcast, has tanked his rushing yards at 64.5. You going more or less?
I'm going to go less.
Keith, welcome in, big dog.
Yeah, what's going on? Can everybody hear me all right?
Yes,
Yeah,
sir.
I think after showing my face the last few days, we're probably better off going back to.
We lost some subscribers.
Going back, yes. We lost some subscribers, mostly female subscribers.
Yeah.
Not at all. Look, man, you had the whole Vice City background going on back there, man. You know, I enjoyed it.
Listen, I'm just glad to be alive after what I saw the last few days.
Is your power back on?
Power's back. Yeah, it was good.
All right.
Listen, I never complained once about that because, you start watching that film, the film on TV of what was going on, about 100 miles south of here, man. You're like, oh my God, holy cow, holy cow.
Hey, big how about you to the linemen out there.
Absolutely, man.
And the Jheads out there.
Yeah, 42,000 of those guys were camped out. I want to say up in the Wildwood area, Sumter County, I think is where it is. Which is, if you're ever in Florida, that's right where the interstate jets off. You can go to Tampa or Orlando. Right in that area is where they were situated, I think. And those guys have to ride it out, sleep in their cars. They come from all over, man. I mean, it's amazing. It really is. And then they get that stuff up pretty quickly. And by the way, I mean, I knew nothing about this, but it's not exactly the least dangerous job on the planet. I mean, there's a lot of risks there, and
Lies down. Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, so we were out without power for a day. Big deal. You know what I mean?
Jhead, if you were you said you were on the second wave right now.
Yeah.
What are the first wave guys doing?
So right now, and for those that don't know, I'm in the United States Coast Guard, attached to a team that goes down and handles, or kind of goes in and looks at natural disasters, biological hazards, things of that nature. And so what our guys would do is go down there and assess damage. And essentially there's also a search and rescue mission to help with some of the flooding and things of that nature and getting people, into safety. So right now, the major concern is making sure that those people in that Sarasota, Fort Myers, that whole area that's been highly affected, that they're safe, that, that they've been moved to a place where they have the basic needs that they need, for their families to feel comfortable. And then we'll get in and start trying to assess the damage and see what needs to be done as far as making safety zones and getting things from a pollution standpoint, from a salvage standpoint, and getting that organized.
Hey, Keith, we have all talked about the recruiting weekend that's coming up.
Yeah.
The impressive list of visitors once again for Auburn. A couple of updates for you. David Hobbs is going to Ohio State with his sister this weekend. His mom wants him to get out of the South, understandably. Arian Carter, one of his family members died, unfortunately, so he's going to be staying home with his family. But we have added Jeremiah Beeman, the four-star defensive lineman in the 2024 class. We've added Jelani Thurman, who's expected to come, as well as I forgot JJ. I'm sure JJ's coming with Keldrick. And then tonight, Keith, Jimmy Brumbaugh is going to see Keldrick Falk. And then Christian Robinson since Jaden Osbury can't come to Auburn, Auburn's going to go to him. So Christian Robinson is going down to Baton Rouge to see Jaden Osbury. But Keith, your thoughts on this list of visitors expected to come in this week?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great list. It's not a surprise. I mean, credit to the staff, of course. But, when has Auburn ever not gotten good visitors lists at these big games? I mean, and again, that's not a knock on the current staff. I need to be clear about that. Obviously, they're doing a good job getting guys there. But this is a marquee game, whether the teams are ranked or not. It's a great rivalry. It's a night game. Everybody knows the atmosphere is going to be out of control. It's two teams fighting for their lives. One team really trying to find its identity, but the other team is too. I mean, LSU's trying to figure out what they are and who they are at this point as well with a new coach. But no, it's a shame about Hobbs. I haven't felt great about his recruitment for a long time. And you mentioned his sister was going with him. That's a big part of the equation. You may have mentioned a young basketball player, probably going to play at a high level. The Arian Carter one's a little disappointing, I think, for Auburn because, well, look, I mean, things are out of your control, obviously. However, when a kid has set aside a weekend to come to your school, that means it's not just that he wants to get there. That means it fits his schedule. So this fit his schedule, and now he can't make it. And what is the future schedule look like? You know what I mean? And so you may not get that young guy back on your campus. You just never know.
There's not another home game until November.
Yeah, exactly. And that gives other schools a chance to, and other schools, i.e. Tennessee, a chance to really kind of get into him, get its claws, get its grip on him. And so that hurts a little bit. But again, Auburn's only going to sign, we think, We have pretty good information on this. We think they're probably only going to sign, as of right now, 2 high school guys anyway. So Alex Sanford's still coming in this weekend. He's coming to Auburn instead of going to Arkansas, which is really interesting if you think about it.
Very.
Also it makes you wonder, how did Arkansas not push for him to come this weekend? We don't know. We don't know that aspect of it. But if Auburn can flip him, then all of a sudden you only need one more linebacker. And then obviously they're working on Jhead Nosberry. The whole key to that, and all 3 of you guys have said this before, is if the staff's here. If the staff's here, Christian Robinson's here, Auburn's going to have a shot. We're pretty sure of that. Still working on some other guys. But no, overall, it's a good visitors list. I mean, again, anytime you get James Smith and Quay Rousseau to your stadium, it's good.
Tony Mitchell's coming in.
Tony Mitchell coming in for an official visit. I do think his father is not going to be with him. At least that was the last we heard. But they've been to Auburn plenty of times. And so, I don't necessarily know that that's a big deal. And I still think he's going to be hard to flip.
Sure.
But why not? I mean, you're given a certain amount of official visits. It used to be 55. I'm not quite sure what the number is now, but not all of them. You have to swing for the fences on side. See Jhead nodding. I mean, you got to swing for the fences on some guys. It doesn't hurt you. It's kind of like when something happens, let's say whoever the president is, and they comment on one situation, and everybody on Twitter says, well, what about this situation? Well, they can look at 2 situations at once, and you can recruit multiple guys at once. I mean, I hope you can. I mean, if you can't, you're in the wrong business. So swing for the fences on some guys, what happens. But while you have another, while you're also rotating around other recruits' accesses, you know what I mean? Excuse me. And so I like that. I think there's some good people coming in. I'm still curious. Are they going to take a quarterback? I have a lot of questions right now.
Yeah.
Is there going to be a quarterback in this class? Is there going to be a second running back in this class? You had mentioned the Robinson kid out of California has wanted to come and hasn't been able to make it. And maybe Auburn's going in another direction too. I mean, that probably makes sense. That's a tough one. It's hard to get a running back from that far away. A quarterback, maybe, but a running back, it's hard. Now, obviously, Auburn did it with Cameron Artis-Payne, but there's still a lot of question marks. A lot, not question marks, but a lot of
uncertainties.
Like what direction are these guys going to go in? Defensive line, Darren Reed, that's a significant one. I talked to somebody at LSU last night, or closely tied into that program, and they said that LSU still continues to feel really good about him, but they see Auburn as, if there is competition, they see Auburn as the competition.
Sure.
So, this is third game. What are his feelings going to be like during this game? Who's he going to be pulling for inside? He better not be cheering for LSU if he's sitting in the Auburn section. That doesn't go over too well. You know what I mean? But so look, they're getting guys to campus, but as people have pointed out on the message board, that isn't always enough. I mean, the next step is to land more of those guys. And now, look, there's been stories written this week about how the NIL is more competitive than it's ever been. Well, we're going to see. We're going to find out. We're going to find out if that's been a major hindrance or not. Because if it's all working great now, then you probably better be getting some guys, right? And if you don't, then maybe there's some other things in play. That's the hard way of looking at it. But I mean, look, great visitors list. NIL seems to be heading in the right direction. Now it's really just a matter of stability with the coaching staff. If there's that, then I think they're going to have a fairly decent class. If not, it's going to be tough.
Yeah.
I feel like I said this on the podcast yesterday. I think we'll know a lot more by the end of the October. Either put this shit to bed.
Yep.
And let's start looking and supporting, this staff, or let's move on. One of the two things has got to happen. I think you're kind of in a lull right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard. Obviously, you have a staff that's working extremely hard to still continue to get kids on campus, and that's what we're covering, and that's what we're talking about today.
And commitments.
Right. But you're right. Right now, the future is so unknown. It's hard to feel good about any one direction of the way this is trending right now. But you're right, Jay Lee. As we move into the bye week, there'll be a lot more clarity there. And so as far as coverage is concerned, we can make some clear choices there. And as far as kids are concerned, they're going to know better. Like, all right, are we transitioning from this staff or is everybody all in? Because if you go out there and you beat LSU, you're competitive against Georgia, and you find a way to beat Ole Miss, well, I think we're talking about this staff in a whole different light. If you go out there and you lose to LSU, you lose to Georgia, and then you lose to Ole Miss, well, then we're looking at it from a completely different vantage point.
True.
And Keith, I think you hit the nail on the head. Yes, the reports are the NIL is definitely in the right direction. And from what I know of the situation, it is in the right direction. But NIL is not everything when you don't exactly know who's going to be coaching you just yet. And that's being driven home by every staff in the SEC and the ACC that's recruiting against Auburn. So I think the instability will not allow NIL to be successful to a degree until there's some clarity there as far as that's concerned.
Yeah, where NIL I think is going to make the biggest difference for Auburn in this cycle, regardless of who's coaching, is going to be through the portal.
Agreed.
They're going to have a lot of money. Now that said, the Alabamas of the world also are going to save some too. They're not. This isn't their first rodeo either, so it's still going to be competitive. But I think Auburn will be a little bit better situated at that point. But there's a lot of truths here. But within these truths, we're still trying to dig a little deeper. For example, did everything that happened earlier this year hurt this staff? All the talk of Harson's job security and all that. Absolutely, it hurt. And here's another truth: they weren't setting the world on fire before that. In recruiting. Now they weren't stinking it up either. Let's be clear about that. I mean, these guys are taking a hell of a lot of criticism right now. Some of it's deserved, but some of it is like, there's some major hurdles that they've had to deal with. So cut them a little slack. Last year, first year staff had to deal with COVID, understanding the lay of the land down here. Now the problem was you were following that class up, that cycle up, or that class followed up the transition class, which you didn't get much out of. So that's where it's an issue that again, 2 cycles in a row, you didn't really crush it. So you really needed to come out strong this cycle. And then you got people that, wanted the head coach gone, and that hurt. Now you've got the talk of the NIL is finally going in the right direction. And people have said, well, that's really kind of held them back. And it probably has held them back some. The question is how much. Again,
yes.
Were there missteps that had nothing to do, or have there been missteps that had nothing to do with NIL? I'm sure there have been. But if you don't have the negative chatter and you had the NIL at full speed, you wonder where they'd be at recruiting right now. So, I mean, there's a lot of challenges. Could they have done certain things better? I'm sure they could have. We all get phone calls from people that say, why didn't they do this? Why didn't they do that? And that's understandable, but there have been some major hurdles. But again, the fan doesn't care. And you know what? Maybe they shouldn't, because at the end of the day, it's a results-oriented business. We all have challenges at work. I had challenges this week. I didn't have power, but you know what? You still got to show up for work. And yes, I worked my 30 minutes yesterday, guys. I put in a full, good, hard day of 30 minutes work. Okay. No, seriously. I mean, but if you're a fan, they love following all this stuff behind the scenes, but at the end of the day, they just want results. Right. And same with the decision makers, and whether it's true or not that you've really been handcuffed by certain things, and they have been, there's no doubt. At the end of the day, people just want to see that recruiting class up there near the top and see difference makers pour it in and a more talented product. And so I definitely feel, we've gotten to know a lot of these people behind the scenes, man. Good people, hardworking people, smart people. These aren't dumbasses, okay? And there's maybe 1 or 2. No, I'm kidding. But no, but that's what they say about us probably. But, the thing is, it's just, and I know I'm talking in circles like I always do. I'm just kind of stream of conscious here.
I hear you.
There've been a lot of hurdles, let's put it that way. But it's an unforgiving fan base. And by the way, all the top 20 programs have unforgiving fan bases. They want wins on the field, and they want wins in recruiting, and they don't care how you do it. They don't want excuses. They just want it. They want to see it. But again, I would have liked to have seen what these guys could do without all the hurdles.
Sure. Yeah, me too.
In fairness to them.
In fairness, yeah.
Yeah, my opinion is the lull that Auburn is currently in that Jeffrey talked about earlier is, and I know you got the transfer portal to help you out. And again, this is my opinion. I still think it just you're losing such valuable time with recruiting by doing the lull and by being in a holding pattern, and it's just not good for recruiting whether or not you have the transfer portal. Okay, it's hard to rebuild, especially these days because coaches have such a small time clock to get things right. You can't make a lot of mistakes because you don't have a lot of time when you get hired at a big school like Auburn. You don't. That's just the reality of the situation right now. So being in the lull is not helping anybody. It's not helping Coach Harsin. It's not helping his staff. It's not helping a future staff that would take over for him. It's just not helping Auburn. That's just my opinion on it.
No, I think that's valid, Cole. I mean, if we're talking about recruiting in general and taking over a program, the talent acquisition piece and having that new coach smell, and all those other components in place are so invaluable. And I feel like we've all talked about this, but coming from across the country, not necessarily having the contacts, then you develop the contacts, but you're a little bit behind. The NIL piece is not in place. The season doesn't go last year exactly how you expect it to. You put a lot of eggs in the basket of producing on the field this year. That has not come to fruition to this
and
point.
Development.
Right. The development hasn't been there. So what would it be like if everything had broken a different way? Who knows? But
yeah,
what I guess what I do want to talk about real quick, and I want to see your guys' reaction to this, and let's go Jeffrey, Cole, Keith, everybody here. As far as recruiting a kid is concerned, yes, NIL is a massive piece, okay? Probably the biggest piece of the puzzle right now, but it's not the only piece. There's still relationships. There's development. There's NFL contacts. There's a lot of things that go into play in a recruitment. It's who's the decision maker, you know what I mean? And making sure that you're recruiting that person just as hard as, you know what I mean, you're recruiting the actual prospect in and of themselves. So how do you think the staff has done with those other things? NIL regardless. Let's talk about the other things that matter in a recruitment and what you guys have seen so far.
Okay, my stance on the NIL is pretty simple. I've said it this many times. All NIL has to do is make sure that they're the reason that the kid did not choose Auburn.
Yes,
that's all their job is to do. Now you're leveling the playing field. Now it's back to old school recruitment. It's back to the relationships. It's back to following the visits and doing that. So they're getting the kids on campus. Obviously, they're getting the kids back multiple visits. I think most of the guys, the stud guys coming in this weekend, this will be their second or even third game, and I'm sure that they'll be back for more. So NIL to me, level the playing field where it's not a reason for a kid choosing anywhere else. That's not the reason you didn't get the kid. Now you're focused more on the old school recruiting of relationships and stuff like that. And the reason Tony Mitchell's coming to Auburn this weekend is because of Zach Etheridge.
Yes.
The reason Alex Sanford is so high on Auburn right now is Christian Robinson. Those guys were brought in not only as coaches, but to spearhead the recruitment of these guys. And some of these coaches who have got the reputation for recruiters have done their jobs. Are the results there yet? No. Goes back to what Keith was saying. They want to see that these guys are going to be here. And so far this year, we haven't seen any reason to believe that they will be.
Right.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that answers your question, Jhead, but that's about all I've got on the subject.
It does.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of good recruiters on the staff. You Rock Bellantoni, Zach, Christian Robinson. Not to leave out anybody. Those are guys that come to mind that are doing a good job. And like you said, Robinson doesn't have the results with any commitments yet.
But we know it's not his fault, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, you've got whether they've been recruiters in their career or not, they're in a different situation now. That is the reality of it,
right?
And it takes some different tactics to try to get a guy to come play for you when, hey, I don't know if you're going to be here. I don't know what's going on with the program. Who knows? A lot of questions out there that they have to answer that they've never had to answer before. So that's something that's just a reality of it. Again, results, like Keith was saying, it doesn't matter. You got to have results regardless. You got to make it work.
Zero-sum game.
You got to work with the hand you're dealt there. So I think these guys are going to get better at recruiting because of the situation they're in. no matter where they're at, whether they're at Auburn or they get a job somewhere else. And we know that happens a lot. So it's not out of the realm of possibility that they're somewhere else in the next couple of years, regardless of what happens at Auburn. And I think this whole situation will make them better. I really do.
Well, any coach that's been around a while has really been in every situation. Hey, the roster's loaded, but we're developing guys. You may you may not play right away, but you're going to compete against the best in practice, and that's going to make you better, and you're going to get to the NFL faster. Or, hey, our roster is depleted right now. You can come right in. Yeah. We've got stability. We don't, whatever. They've been a guy like Rock Bellantoni has been around for many years. Has been in tons of situations. Now, some of the guys that came from Boise, like Brian Harsin, he's never really been in a job security situation. So maybe that's a little unique to him. But Jhead, explain your question again. Was really go over that one more time with me here.
So besides NIL, how do you feel like this staff has done with the other facets of a recruitment, with the relationship angle, with the prioritization of kids, the evaluations, knowing the difference makers in a recruitment, whether it's the mom, the dad, the coach? Well,
any criticism, I'm sure we'll hear about it from somebody. But look, I mean, I think the thing is, from an evaluation standpoint, I mean, essentially you're recruiting from the same pond as the other big schools, right?
Right.
That's where you start off at. But while you're recruiting the big fish, you're also recruiting, looking for other guys. And I think Auburn has definitely beefed up its scouting department. This Drew Fabianitz, who I haven't met, and so many years experience with the Cowboys. Also coached on the defensive line with the Tennessee Volunteers. And I guess you could say, okay, now he's scouted for the NFL. That's a little different than scouting in high school because guys are developed and they're kind of at their peak bodies at that point. But I think it's safe to say the guy probably knows what he's doing. And in fact, he's also getting heavily involved in recruitment. So I like that acquisition there. Is that the right term? I like that hire because it really gives some major help to guys like Steven Ruzick and Darren Usher, who, I'll tell you the guy who I kind of feel for is Darren Usher because, that first year, man, I mean, he was kind of on an island and he had to work like multiple jobs, Yeah. But no, from an overall standpoint, I think the scouting is fine. I guess one thing you could say is maybe there's been a few, how do I say this? With the 2024 quarterback situation, taking Adrian Posse when they did at Big Cat Weekend, when it looked like Aaron Nolan also was getting ready to commit, those things are tricky. Those are hard decisions you have to make, and they're still recruiting. They're still recruiting Aaron Nolan, the other 2024 quarterback. I'm really talking in circles now, but I think Auburn.
I think that's a good point to bring up.
It was going to be hard to take both of them at the same time, right? And so you had to pick. And I think there's been some recruits that were surprised that Nolan's not, other recruits that we've talked to surprised that Nolan's not the one that's on the commit list right now. But there's difficult choices you have to make. I mean,
Keith, hey, go back to the summer when you had several linemen, offensive linemen, presumably leaning towards Auburn, and it didn't look like Auburn was making that push for them. It was like they were almost saving some spots, and they still are. Let's be honest. Keith, you think we're seeing Auburn at least halfway finished with the class, right? So that means you got about 10 or 11 spots left.
Yeah.
And you've got all these big time guys committed elsewhere that Auburn was hoping to flip.
Yes.
And so you're pushing other guys away in hopes that you're going to flip these guys.
Yeah.
And, you got Clay Whedon coming back in this weekend. I'm trying to think of some other guys that you kind of slow played.
Well, Colton Hood.
Yeah.
Colton Hood, the defensive back from Atlanta. That's one. But that's,
Ricky Gibson.
It's always a game of chicken in a sense. Yeah, I don't want to be
Gerard.
Yeah, we're trying not to be too critical because you have to make tough choices. I mean, if you take all those guys early, the fans are
Damned if you do, damned if you
Yeah,
don't.
you're right. You're
Yeah,
right.
it is 100%.
And if you
Bison
do,
Lang.
they thought they were going to have a really strong team this year.
Right.
Yes.
Now they're still 3-1. So
Right.
to recruit, maybe they're just seeing 3-1 and say, hey, what's the problem? They're 3-1. But to the people that are watching every week, we're seeing a team that doesn't look like a great team. Now maybe it will look like a great team in 2-3 weeks. We don't know, but you're right. Damned if you do, damned if you don't. After a lot of those guys committed to other schools, we were told that they reached out to Auburn, many of them, and said, "Hey, keep recruiting me.
Yep.
I want to be. I still want to be recruited." So they did, and we'll see. I mean, they're still in it with a lot of guys. A lot of these guys are still visiting. Gabriel Harris, that's a big one. Georgia commit. Do they have a shot? It seems like they do. So maybe they know more than we do here. Maybe they know more than everybody else. But again, this is where if you had the perceived stability within the staff, you might have a better chance of flipping these guys. One more loss and the noise is going to get really loud, and it may flush a lot of their hard work down the drain, unfortunately for them. You know what I mean?
I don't want to cut you off, but I think you just tapped into what I was trying to get to. Is that, yes, there have been some missteps by the staff, but the relationships have been strong. If the stability piece was there, I feel like the relationships have been strong enough that we would have more commitments on the board than we presently do if things were slightly different, okay? If it didn't appear as though Auburn was on the verge of implosion, So I think there have been some things this staff has done really well. Obviously, there's missteps. There's missteps with every staff. Gus and his staff had missteps, and they recruited at a very high level. And Nick Saban has messed recruitments up before. It's not like their staff is infallible. So I guess the general point I'm trying to make is there have been some really good things that this staff has done. There have been some things that haven't been great. But overall, if it felt more like Auburn was in sync, and that Auburn was bought in and that we were all moving in one direction, that recruiting probably would be in a much different spot than it is presently. And I don't think we're going to get any kind of way forward on that till, like Jeffrey said, at the bye week, and then you'll know. You're going to know one way or another which way this is going to turn.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I want to maybe add sort of a unique perspective here for fans, because I am somebody that followed recruiting for a long time before I was in this business of covering recruiting. And when I followed recruiting, I could not understand why recruits didn't feel the way that a fan would about, hey, Auburn's not doing very good right now. Why would you want to go there with all that mess, whatever? I didn't understand it. I was just with everybody on that. I was like, how? What is the perception? How are you seeing it that way? I can tell you from being on this side, you would be surprised what those kids think. They have such different opinions than what fans have. It is so – it was eye-opening to me talking to a lot of kids with the way things have been, even back in the spring. Like, they're not seeing it the way that fans are seeing it. Fans are doomsday, okay? Recruits are not. They see it as an opportunity. They see it as, hey, that's my favorite coach. And they haven't even put any thought into, oh, yeah, well, all that mess, whatever, They haven't put any thought into that at all.
And Cole, that's true. That is true. They do seem to like these guys. They do visit a lot. But on the other hand, they just haven't landed a lot of what you call difference makers.
Yeah.
So something's been missing.
Well, something
NIL component? Is it the stability? Is it a combination? Or is it missteps from the top down? Something has happened where they, quite frankly, now haven't landed many. Now, could Holden Gerner end up being one of those guys? Maybe. We don't know. They seem to like him a lot. But, with the quarterback, sometimes you don't know for 2 or 3 years, right?
Yeah. Right.
But when you look at who they've signed the first couple of classes and who's committed now, you just don't see a ton of – now, let's hope we're wrong, right? Let's hope there are a ton, and we're the ones missing it. Like we thought, maybe we all missed on Camden Brown, right? We all sort of liked him, but we didn't know that he was going to get as much praise as he did during the preseason. Well, how many catches does he have right now? Okay. Now,
2.
Okay.
2? I thought it was 1.
Okay. Well, it's either 1 or 2.
Trust me, big dog. It's 2.
So if there have been difference makers signed, they haven't made an impact yet. And so That's what fans, where are the recruits that are giving people, man, this is going to be a guy. I can't wait to see what this guy does against Georgia's defensive line, or what this guy does against Alabama's secondary. Right now, it seems like it's just they're in survival mode, really. And by the way, again, this is not, and some of the people over there are going to take this as unlimited criticism. It's not. This is just a byproduct of everything that's happened. We're not assigning blame, but it is what it is, right?
I agree.
I think there's some people working their asses off and doing really good work over there. We see it every day. Yeah, we see it every day. We see people praise Ruzick and Usher and Fabianitz and Christian Robinson and these guys. So this is no like, hey, these guys suck, man. I don't think that at all, really. But there's again, at the end of the day, where are the, and maybe it's coming. But here we are. We're almost 2 years in, and I don't know. Again, it would have been nice to see. It would have been nice to see what these guys have done without COVID, without any of this other garbage, right? And with an NIL kicking early. Now some people say, well, did Harsin push for that NIL? What are you laughing at, Jeff?
I love you, Keith.
What am I doing wrong here?
You're awesome. I love your takes.
Well, no, you don't. Come on. But no, I mean,
I do too.
The NIL situation, why did it take so long?
Yeah.
I don't know. That's a good question.
Hey, well, Jhead's going to have to go check on some things.
Yep.
So we'll cut it there. Real quick, how about you this week? Anybody, Jhead?
No, another very
yeah, I hear you.
I guess it's hard for me to give how about yous when I think everybody is in the frenzy of coaching search and AD search and everything else as far as that's concerned, just complete upheaval. So no dingleberries, no how about yous from me this week. Just
I hear you. All right. Cole, you have any?
Yes. I have WDE 33. And I have Wile Coyote.
Wiley. I got Wiley too.
Really?
I got Wiley too.
Wiley kind of stood out this week. I'm not
you have
gonna lie.
You have any posters that you want to bring light to?
Me?
Yeah, like Pete Sanchez.
I'll say the whole board. How about everybody on the board that expressed concern about my well-being this week being down in Florida? They're all worried about me, and I was in my apartment swinging the golf club for 2 hours a day.
I've got several. Most of this is because of the people, the way they reply or the gifts they were using, or they were big fans of the show or anything like that. Trey Smith lover.
Oh yeah.
Theme Sayer has had some quality posts this week. I think that's one of Keith's favorite posters. Theme Sayer.
Actually, I'd mixed it up with them a little bit, but I do like them.
Yeah. Tucker's Ghost at GFYJGT. Big how about you to GFYJGT.
Oh, dude.
Hey, he had a quality post this week. At Quattro at SS War Eagle at Quattro with 2 T's.
Is that the alien in that Arnold Schwarzenegger movie that came out of the guy's stomach?
I think that's 4 in Spanish.
Oh, okay. I guess not.
But Quattro with a Q. Maybe you're right, Keith, because Quattro in Spanish is Cuarto. Quattro. Hell, I don't. Yeah. So anyway, at SS War Eagle, at Wardam 23, at Corrigo, at Jareo, at bbruce9966 at gmail.com. If you need to contact him, I do not have the information.
Hey, can we give him Jhead's phone number?
Yeah.
We'll just give it to him.
At Barnboy3, at 8 Figures, and at Wiley. How about you to all you fellas, man? We appreciate y'all. We appreciate you listening. We appreciate you subscribing to the Auburn Live on 3 website. If you're not a subscriber, now is a fantastic time to do so. Get signed up right now for the first week free, and then it's 50% off after that. So you're looking at $5 a month. Can't beat that. Thanks, everybody, again for listening. We're going to be back with recruiting coverage all throughout the weekend. Auburn hosts LSU Saturday night, 6 o'clock in Jordan-Hare Stadium. We will have the recruiting blog going. We will have post-game reactions from recruits. Justin and Cole both will be having some football, some team coverage of the game there as well. Got 3 official visitors leaving Sunday. We'll be all over that. And then we'll be back. Keith and I will be back Monday morning for the Inside the 20 podcast. Thanks again, everybody. Real quick, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button on our YouTube channel, hit that notifications. You'll know every time a video gets uploaded. For Jhead, for Pink, for Keith, for Zach in the back, I'm Jeffrey Lee. Y'all stay out of the left lane. See you.